نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله تبارك وتعالى عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا أما بعد. We are commencing from Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 108. Previously, there was a discussion on several topics. The last of them was naskh. And we talked about abrogation in the shari'as that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed between the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam, and then abrogation and naskh in our sharia, in our Quran, and as it related to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All of this was in response to certain questions that had been asked, or objections that had been raised, or to prepare an introduction, a preface to what is about to be discussed in a little bit more detail. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَمْ تُرِيدُونَ أَن تَسْأَلُوا رَسُولَكُمْ كَمَا سُئِلَ مُوسَى مِنْ قَبْلِ وَمَنْ يَتَبَدَّلِ الْكُفْرَ بِالْإِيمَانِ فَقَدْ ضَلَّ سَوَاءَ السَّبِيلِ. Do you also want, or another translation is, or is it that you want to ask your messenger, to ask questions from your messenger as were asked from Musa alayhi salam prior to this? Which questions are being referred to? The people of Bani Israel did not take anything that Musa alayhi salam said at face value. They wanted to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with their own eyes. Arina Allah jahara. They had doubts regarding the message that Musa alayhi salam was receiving. Was it in fact from Allah, or was it something else? So they had many different kinds of questions and objections. They wanted to see the Torah being revealed. They wanted to have it in their own hands. They wanted to verify with their minds what they thought needed verification. Now, regarding this ayah, there are two explanations. One is that this verse is addressing the Jews in the time of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, some of whom pretended to be well-wishers, and they pretended to show genuine interest in Allah, in the Quran, in the Risala of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam as he was conveying. But they also made many different kinds of objections and demands, like they did with Musa alayhi salam. One of them was that they also asked Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam to present the complete Quran in its entirety all at once. That this is being revealed in small portions, in verses and chapters. We want you to bring the whole Quran to us. So in that case, the address is towards the Jews that were there, asking them that, so do you now also want to ask this messenger that has been sent to you questions like you used to ask Musa alayhi salam, your forefathers used to ask Musa alayhi salam? The reason why this question is being raised is that they all know what those objections led to, what types of punishments and trials came as a consequence for asking such questions, which were not questions in the pure sense. They were more like objections or challenges, like we dare you to. or prove this to us and then we will believe in you. Or it could be for all the Muslims as a warning to not fall into this trap. Do not get into the business of trying to make demands where you want the deen of Allah to satisfy your curiosities. Everyone will have a different kind of intellectual curiosity based on their level of intellect and based on the kind of intelligence that they possess. There are many different kinds of intelligence. And based on that, everyone has questions that are specific to them, because their mind approaches subjects and topics in its own unique way. The wahi, the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the message brought by the Prophets ﷺ is for all of those people, regardless of their thinking capacity and regardless of the type of thinking they have. The idea is for them to contemplate on what has been revealed and follow the example of the Prophet that it has been revealed to. So there will be, and there are, people amongst the ranks of the Muslims who raise all kinds of objections, and they want the religious texts, or they want religion as a whole to satisfy their type of intellectual curiosity. Now, religion is not based on conjecture. It's not based on philosophies or trains of thinking, of logic that have been devised by human beings. Human beings are susceptible to those, and they are limited to them. But the divine word is not limited to those. In fact, it lays down the foundation for what should become the philosophy of mankind. But it does not come as a subject of a particular philosophy. It does not come to satisfy the requirements of a particular line of thinking, because divine revelation speaks to truths and realities. It addresses truths, it addresses absolute realities. Now, from that, a person can devise a style of thinking, a line of thinking, but it will not be the opposite, that the Quran should satisfy the objections in your mind in order for it to be true. Rather, if an objection is raised and the objection is valid, then by and large the religious texts, they address the objections and they explain. Islam does not shun questions. It does not shun questions. What it does encourage, though, is to build a sense of yaqeen and conviction and attachment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So a person's life starts revolving around one deity, one being. Now, yes, questions will come, and you should turn to that being for answers. But to say he should have revealed it like this, or he should have done this, why did he do this, why didn't he do this? Well, there will be many wisdoms behind everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says and does. Some of those wisdoms we will be able to grasp, and some of them we will not be able to grasp. We do not need to comprehend every single bit of information in order to believe it to be true. Just like those of us who are not from the IT field, we believe what the IT people tell us. We don't try to jump into the back end of every information technology system and try to pry it apart and say, no, why is it like this? It should be like this. Why was it designed like this? It should be like this. Even though those are systems designed by human beings, we say, look, that's a little bit beyond my capacity. But there will be specialists in that field who have understood it, and they're very comfortable about it, because they have learned it in a specific way in a specific sequence, learning one block of information, then placing another block of information on top of it, and they take it for granted. This is how it works. So those who choose to gain knowledge of deen can gain it. There is no limitation on anyone as to how much knowledge they can gain. But the answers to objections lie in knowledge. The answers to objections do not lie in giving theories and views and opinions. So if somebody has a confusion, often what happens is that a confusion is based on a fundamental piece of information that is missing. And that fundamental information sometimes lies in the foundations of deen. So while the question might be related to a specific thing, the answer lies in the principles of deen. There is a principle that we have not understood, therefore the objections arise and sometimes they get very strong. That's why it becomes so important and crucial to understand things like aqeedah, which are from the foundations of this deen. And if there is something, it doesn't mean that anyone who has an objection has an incorrect aqeedah. This is not the assertion. But rather there is a piece of information down there in the foundation that they need to get before they can come to this level and understand what's happening. People ask questions about taqdeer all the time. Why like this and why is like that, and explain this to me. The answers lie in the foundations of these issues. Similarly, there may be a question that arises. Everyone's a human being. Questions arise. Like I said, Islam does not shun curiosity. It does not shun questions either. It does not shun research and exploration. But it says that the answers to all of these things lie in true knowledge, and learn it step by step and you can understand it. But don't expect, just like the layman should not expect to understand everything that's happening in the back end of an IT system, the layman here should not expect to understand everything that's happening in the back end of the systems of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not a reasonable or a feasible desire. You could do it, but come back, start from the basics and build your way up. Now here's where we get confused. Because we have spent our lives studying something, or researching something, or working in a particular field where we have often acquired a great deal of understanding, we want to use that understanding in order to comprehend religious text. So a person who's coming, for example, from a field of philosophies will want to understand religious text based on what he has learned there. A person who is coming from the mechanical disciplines will try to apply the concepts that he has or she has understood there, and then try to understand the Quran based on that background. But the fact is that the Quran, like I said, it's for all of those people. It has its own ground, which is a neutral ground. We must first come to that ground, and then build our way up, and the objections are answered. So this, even if this was revealed for the Jews of that time, it's actually speaking to us. That before you ask a question that is in light of why or why not, first keep in mind the pieces of the building blocks, let's say, that were missing from the understandings of Bani Israel, that led them to ask certain questions. So their questions were in the light of refusal to believe. They were not able to comprehend the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as He is, and the message of the Messenger alayhi salam as he was conveying it. They wanted to see it, they wanted to understand it with their own minds. So, is it that you want to ask your messenger questions similar to those that were asked to Musa alayhi salam prior to this? وَمَنْ يَتَبَدَّلِ الْكُفْرَ بِالْإِيمَانِ فَقَدْ ضَلَّ سَوَاءَ السَّبِيلِ. Remember that if your question is resulting in an act of, in a state of disbelief, resulting from a state of disbelief, if your questions are coming because you don't believe, then On one side, you have the option, no one is going to force you. You have the option to begin from a place of belief or begin from a place of disbelief. How would you like to frame your question? Where are you coming from? Are you coming from the perspective of someone who doesn't believe it and says, I am not going to accept this until and unless you prove it to me? Or are you approaching it from a place of, no, I believe in this, I just want to understand better? There is a huge difference between these two. If you give up the position of belief for the position of disbelief, and your objection is a pure objection that this is wrong or this is incorrect or I'm challenging what you're saying, well, now you have given up your faith and you've taken disbelief in exchange. Anyone who does this, فَقَدْ ضَلَّ سَوَاءَ السَّبِيلِ, this person has strayed from the straight path. So the Quran does our tarbiyah, it does our intellectual tarbiyah, where yes, we can get into very profound discussions, but when it comes to deen, make sure you're coming from the right place. And inshallah, you will be guided to the straight path. But make sure that first you eradicate that doubt, that suspicion which is created by shaitan. Because if you are going to start with that and go forward carrying this inside, then this is فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ مَرَضٍ فَزَادَهُمُ اللَّهُ مَرَضًا. In the heart now is the disease of doubt. And now this doubt is only going to increase. This is cancerous. It's going to metastasize. It's going to spread. And it's going to affect all the areas of your deen. So the Quran is giving us this warning. وَدَّ كَثِيرٌ مِّنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ لَوْ يَرُدُّونَكُمْ مِّن بَعْدِ إِيمَانِكُمْ كُفَّارًا. The Quranic ayat are linked in a very beautiful and a very special way. And the discussions are always interconnected. Sometimes the interconnection is very subtle. And sometimes it's very clear. So you see how sometimes one verse will serve as an introduction or as a preface or as a preparatory discussion for what comes next. Now look what comes next. There are many people from Ahlul Kitab that desire to turn you to kufr after you have believed. What is this saying? That there will be many forces around you, people around you, movements around you that will try to infiltrate your minds and plant the seeds of doubt so that ultimately you end up walking away from faith. Just like today there is a massive movement towards the rejection of faith altogether. They don't want you to have that faith. حَسَدًا مِّنْ عِنْدِ أَنفُسِهِمْ. It is a jealousy that they have inside. Why would they be jealous? When they see your devotion, your strength in your faith, and what it empowers you to do, the abilities that it grants you, how you conquer difficulties and problems, how you remain steadfast, how you are able to get through the traps and the problems that they lay for you strategically, politically. How your faith, when they see how your faith enables you to go through all of that, and ultimately the believers, all they have is their faith. Their resources are always something secondary. The resources that relate to power and the resources that relate to capital, these for believers are secondary things. As we call them asbab. These are means. Use them when you can, if you can. But if you don't have them, it doesn't mean all is lost. If you don't have the capital resources, it's not lost. The cause goes on. Deen continues to spread from heart to heart to heart, as it did for 13 years in Mecca, where there was no power and there was no capital. There was just Iman. So Iman spreads. So this is something very difficult for people to grasp. And it is difficult for them to bear, because no matter what problem they put you in, you manage to get out of it. That creates a feeling of jealousy. That's where the jealousy comes from. Badr happens as an example. 313 against 1,000. These 313 didn't have the arms. They didn't have training. They did not have horses or camels. They did not have enough swords. They did not have any of those things. Yet, they were victorious. Why? How? How could this happen? Battle of Uhud takes place. It's supposed to crush them. It's supposed to annihilate them. But they bounce right back. Why? Uhud was much more intense than Badr. And the major battles after that, like the Battle of Khandaq, Ahzab, it was even more intense. It was a different kind of intense because all of the parties that had a bone to pick with the Muslims, they all got united. That's what made it Al-Ahzab. It wasn't one enemy, it was enemies that had formed an alliance. Again, very difficult, very stringent circumstances. Muslims are starving. You read the stories. They're shivering in the cold. They're starving. They're tying stones to their bellies. They're digging this trench. Every time they managed to come out on top. And it was always through things that were not really in the control. Look at the story of Battle of Badr. Look at the story of the Battle of Ahzab. The things that gave them victory were extraordinary. This was a result of the faith. So, they realized that there is some great strength here. The truth must lie here. These people do have the truth, but we can't accept that. We can't acknowledge that. Otherwise, we will lose everything. So, مِن بَعْدِ مَا تَبَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الْحَقِّ, after the truth has become clear to them, they now have no choice but to try to stop you because of their feelings of jealousy and envy towards you. So they will make attempts to take you away from your deen. They will make attempts. Some of those attempts will be subtle, planting things into your minds in the form of doubts or suspicions or alternate theories or other things, hatred towards your deen, hatred towards your people. This effort will continue. The ultimate goal is to take you away from your deen. Anything that makes you compromise your deen, you should be ready to question it. This is what the gist of this verse is. And add to it the hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari, the hadith of the sweetness of Iman, that there are three things that a person has them. A person who has them will taste the sweetness of Iman. So one of them is أن يكون الله ورسوله أحب إليه مما سواهما. Allah and His Rasul must be more beloved to Him in His heart than anything else. أن يحب المرء لا يحبه إلا لله. Starts loving people only for the sake of Allah, not for any vested interest. Loves them because they have Iman. And وأن يكره أن يعود في الكفر كما يكره أن يقذف في النار. He despises going back to kufr, the things of kufr, the ideas of kufr. He despises going back to them. Just like he would hate to be thrown and tossed into a fire. So a Muslim is not just somebody who walks around saying Islam is a religion of peace. No doubt Islam is a peaceful religion. But we also have to be aware that there will be many battles that will be waged against us of an intellectual nature, of creed, of faith, of conviction, of morals, of ethics. These are also battles that will be waged against us. And if you have nothing else to say but that Islam is a religion of peace, then you will be walked all over. You will be stomped and you will be crushed, and there will be nothing left. You'll be flat on the ground, crushed to pieces, saying Islam is a religion of peace. Be peaceful, be amicable, be kind, be considerate, be compassionate to everyone around you. but don't give away one speck of your faith. That's what this verse is saying. Anything that tells you to compromise even a little bit of the deen, reject it. Knowing that what Allah has in store for you is much better than what this thing can ever offer you. فَعْفُوا وَاصْفَحُوا. Now what do you do about these people that keep causing this trouble? Allah says, let them go. Don't do anything to them, don't say anything to them. فَعْفُوا وَاصْفَحُوا. Let them go, forgive them, show forbearance towards them. حَتَّى يَأْتِيَ اللَّهُ بِأَمْرِهِ. Until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings His command to pass. Soon you will know what to do with these people, you will know who these people are, you will know what they are up to, and you will have the ability to take them on as opponents, as foes. Right now you are not ready. So, protect your iman, like in the other verse, أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَى الَّذِينَ قِيلَ لَهُمْ كُفُّوا أَيْدِيَكُمْ وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ. Don't retaliate. Work on your salat, work on your ibadat, build your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That was the order that was given initially. إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. You might be thinking that how will we get rid of these things? How will we protect ourselves? Well, we should have faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah Azza wa Jal has the qudra, has the power to do anything and everything. And here, just like in that verse, وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. You focus on establishing salah, paying your zakah. وَمَا تُقَدِّمُوا لِأَنفُسِكُم مِّنْ خَيْرٍ تَجِدُوهُ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. Focus on building your connection with Allah, on building your account of good deeds with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any good deed that you send forward, you will find it with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, multiplied many, many, many times. Like in the hadith of Bukhari, that a good deed is on the average multiplied somewhere between 10 and 700 times. For every good deed that a person does, they get either 10 times, somewhere between 10 times the reward up to 700 times the reward, and that's just the average. إِنَّ اللَّهَ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ بَصِيرٌ. Developing the awareness of Allah, the mindfulness, the consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah Azza wa Jal is watching us. Develop this. Now discussions are taking place around them. وَقَالُوا لَنْ يَدْخُلَ الْجَنَّةَ إِلَّا مَنْ كَانَ هُودًا أَوْ نَصَارًا. The Jews are saying that only the Jews have access to Jannah, to paradise. The Christians say the same thing. So while they quarrel amongst themselves, they also say about everyone else, everyone other than them, that these are all infidels, they will not enter into Jannah. So they would say the same thing about the Muslims. تِلْكَ أَمَانِيُّهُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, that's their wish. These are just their wishes. They don't mean anything. Maybe they would like it to be like that. But the fact is that anyone, as the Quran explains itself, that anyone who believes in Allah, who believes in the book that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed, and the messenger that was sent to them at that time, that person is eligible to enter into Jannah. So those people to whom Musa alayhi salam was sent, and they believed in his message, they believed and practiced on the Torah, they will enter into Jannah. Those people who followed Isa alayhi salam, believed in the Injil and practiced it the way they were supposed to at that time, they will be eligible to enter into Jannah. So, قُلْ هَاتُوا بُرْهَانَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. Bring some proof of this from Allah. Bring some evidence of this if you are true in what you say. What is the proof of this? بَلَا. Rather, مَنْ أَسْلَمَ وَجْهَهُ لِلَّهِ وَهُوَ مُحْسِنٌ. Anyone who submits himself to Allah, وَهُوَ مُحْسِنٌ, while he is doing good deeds, he is excelling in good deeds, فَلَهُ أَجْرُهُ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِ. He will get his reward with his Lord. وَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. There will be no fear upon them for what is to come. وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. There will be no grief for them about what has passed. In other words, when their time to depart from this world comes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remove from them the fear and the anxiety of what will happen with me. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا تَتَنَزَّلُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ أَلَّا تَخَافُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا وَأَبْشِرُوا بِالْجَنَّةِ الَّتِي كُنْتُمْ تُوعَدُونَ. Angels will come and console them, comfort them. Don't fear. Let go of the fear, the anxiety of what's going to happen. And let go of the grief, the worry of your mistakes now. No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised you Jannah. You will go there. Then they had these debates amongst themselves. وَقَالَتِ الْيَهُودُ لَيْسَتِ النَّصَارَى عَلَى شَيْءٍ وَقَالَتِ النَّصَارَى لَيْسَتِ الْيَهُودُ عَلَى شَيْءٍ وَهُمْ يَتْلُونَ الْكِتَابِ. The Jews used to say that the Christians have no basis for their religion. لَيْسَتِ النَّصَارَى عَلَى شَيْءٍ. They have no basis for their religion. There's nothing. In other words, they denied the nubuwah of Isa alayhi salam. They denied the revelation of the Injil, that it was from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they said they don't have a prophet, they don't have a book, they are nothing. So the Christians who believed in Musa alayhi salam and respected him, in response to this, they said, لَيْسَتِ الْيَهُودُ عَلَى شَيْءٍ. The Jews have nothing. They have no basis. They have nothing valid to believe in. وَهُمْ يَتْلُونَ الْكِتَابِ. Even though they all recite the scriptures, if you see the links between, the Old Testament and the New Testament, and you see both of them affirming. You see the Torah affirming much of what is in the Gospel, and vice versa. There is much overlap. Now when you say that they have nothing valid that they believe in, you're in fact invalidating a lot of your own religion as well. For example, both books talk about Ibrahim alayhi salam, as an example. Okay. Now if you say that book is completely false, well then you're negating a part of faith that you also uphold. Both are talking about the oneness of Allah. So then what are you negating? There is no need for this. كَذَلِكَ قَالَ الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ مِثْلَ قَوْلِهِمْ. Similarly, those who have no knowledge say the same thing. So like the mushrikeen of the Arabs, they used to tell the Muslims that you don't have anything. So this is a sign of lack of knowledge, lack of understanding. فَاللَّهُ يَحْكُمُ بَيْنَهُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ فِي مَا كَانُوا فِيهِ يَخْتَلِفُونَ. Allah Azza wa Jal will judge between them on the Day of Judgment regarding this ikhtilaf, regarding this difference of views that they have, this conflict that they have. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will settle it. Then the Quran shifts to an issue that was faced by Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam and his companions, and it also applies generally to everyone. وَمَنْ أَظْلَمُ مِمَّنْ مَنَعَ مَسَاجِدَ اللَّهِ أَنْ يُذْكَرَ فِيهَا اسْمُهُ وَسَعَى فِي خَرَابِهَا. Who could be a greater oppressor, who could be a greater wrongdoer than someone who inhibits, who prevents the masajid of Allah from the dhikr of Allah? That the dhikr of Allah takes place in the masjid. Who could be a greater zalim than this? Because the masajid are made for the remembrance of Allah. And instead, وَسَعَى فِي خَرَابِهَا, who makes efforts to make them uninhabited, to empty them, to ruin them. So as you know, when the Prophet ﷺ set out for Umrah with his companions in the 6th year of Hijrah, they were stopped. The Quraysh did not let them. And they said, no, we're not going to let you come into, even though they were all wearing ihram, and so on and so forth. They said, we're not going to let you. It wasn't their right to do so, but they stopped the masjid, and not just any masjid, it was al-Masjid al-Haram, the most sacred masjid. So some Mufassirin say that this verse was revealed at that time. Others say that this is general and speaks about all of those people in the time of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and after that who tried to make efforts to either keep people away from the masajid or create disruptions in the masjid which stopped people, prevented people, or made it more difficult for people to do their ibadah. So based on this, there are many etiquettes that are derived, that we should never do anything related to a masjid that would cause a disruption or that would make it difficult for people to carry out their worship. So for example, if there is a group of people that is sitting down and doing the dhikr of Allah, reciting Quran quietly, or listening to a dars like you are. If somebody comes and all of a sudden starts reciting Quran out loud, they are prohibiting these people from doing one of the things that this masjid has been built for. Similarly, somebody is praying salat in the corner quietly, someone comes and stands close to them and starts reading out loud. Even though they're engaged in an act of worship, it has become disruptive to someone else's act of worship. Similarly, doing something around the masjid that would disturb the people that are inside the masjid. Making such a noise outside the masjid that makes it difficult for people inside to do what they're there to do. Similarly, doing anything that causes damage to the masjid or to the people that come to the masjid. So much so that the Mufassirin, Imam Qurtubi rahimahullah, has mentioned, he's hinted towards Masjid Dirar, a masjid that was created to take people away from Masjid Nabawi. So from that, he says to build one masjid so close to the other masjid that with the intention to take away the musallis from that masjid, that's also included in this. So anything that disrupts the order of the masjid, anything that hinders people from doing the ibadah the way that they're supposed to in the masjid, all of those things are included as the greatest dhulm, the greatest act of injustice, unfairness. أُولَٰئِكَ مَا كَانَ لَهُمْ أَن يَدْخُلُوهَا إِلَّا خَائِفِينَ. Those people who do this, and when it comes time for them to go to the masjid, they will only enter in fear. They will now be afraid of the damage that they have done, that now they are going to be held accountable for it. لَهُمْ فِي الدُّنْيَا خِزْيٌ وَلَهُمْ فِي الْآخِرَةِ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. In this world, they will be belittled, they will be disgraced, and in akhirah, there awaits for them an immense punishment, عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. But remember that even if somebody does create disruptions in the masajid, or even goes as far as, like the Mongolian hordes did, they destroyed the masjids and they turned the masjids into stables. The masajid in the areas of Samarkand and that entire strip, Bukhara, these masajid were turned into grain storages for the horses of the Mongolian armies. And they were turned into stables. And in the time of Hulagu Khan, these people marched into masjids right in the middle of congregations, whether it was Salat al-Jum'ah or any major congregation. They would go in and just slaughter the people. So the Muslim world has gone through these types of things. So anyone who does this is the greatest zalim. But this will not stomp out the deen of Allah or the remembrance of Allah. And this should not inhibit people from going on with their ibadah. وَلِلَّهِ الْمَشْرِقُ وَالْمَغْرِبُ. All of the east and all of the west belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَأَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. Wherever you turn, there is, literally translated, there is the face of Allah. Metaphorically translated, there is the direction of Allah. أَيْنَمَا تَوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. Simply because Allah Azza wa Jal cannot be limited to one direction. He is free from, He transcends beyond direction, because directions are things that we have created. Dimensions, directions, space, area, all of these things are things that we use to measure worldly things. We use these things to measure the physical world. Allah Azza wa Jal is not from the physical world. Allah Azza wa Jal has created the physical world. So to say that Allah is there and He's not there, or anything of this type, this is incorrect. So those, for example, people who turn towards the Kaaba in their salat, they're turning towards the Kaaba not because Allah is there, but because that's the direction that Allah has appointed for them to face. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, look, if you can't for some reason, then remember that any direction that you turn in, there you can worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this hukum applies to whom? It applies to a few types of people. One is someone, for example, who cannot find the qibla. What should they do? Should they leave salat? No, they should pray in whatever direction they think it is. Somebody is out in the darkness, they don't have any kind of compass or navigational instrument, they don't know, pray in any direction. Somebody who is traveling, and they want to pray nawafil. So if they're traveling outside the city and they're praying nawafil, and they're in some kind of a vehicle, it is not compulsory for them to face the qibla. They can face any direction. You're traveling in a car, on the road, you're going to a distant city, you want to pray nawafil, you can sit there and pray nawafil. It doesn't matter what direction you're facing. Yeah, if it's convenient and you can face the qibla, by all means. But for fard salat, you must face the qibla. So that remains in the case of the fard salat, that wherever it is physically possible to face the qibla, you must face the qibla. But in case it's not physically possible, then أَيْنَمَا تَوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. Allah Azza wa Jal has kept this concession for us. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us from those people who have the beliefs that the Quran is emphasizing, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from the beliefs that the Quran is shunning, and may Allah Azza wa Jal make us from those who establish salah and fulfill the requirements of this deen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in.